evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening. And don't forget, the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always with my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
And today it's a calendar episode. I love the calendar episodes because we can literally deep dive into the stuff that you can look forward to coming to the Mahoning. And we're going to cover June. So we kick off June with the return of Real Rumble. This is now our third year doing Real Rumble. For those that don't know, it's a wrestling themed event at the drive-in. So we have a squared circle set up underneath the massive Mahoning screen.
And it's not like we put pads on the ground and drive stakes into the ground.
No.
We put yarn around them. This is an actual legit wrestling ring that is set up under the screen.
This is legitimate. LVAC, who does most of our merch printing and designing, is connected also with another LVAC, the Lehigh Valley Athletic Community. And they have an amazing circuit with wrestling, and they bring in their superstars and put on a show that is really unmatched. The guys talked about it when we did our Lot Crew kind of interview or review of the year. One of the greatest events and experiences at the Mahoning, guaranteed, because Chris and the LVAC and all the performers, they go all out. It is a sight to see these guys' athletic ability. And not only that, but it takes you back to what I remember wrestling being like. Ultra entertaining, ultra character driven, and these guys give you a show, and funny and fun. And that's really what it is. And some of the greatest memories of last year come with sitting ringside with my son, little Virgie, rocking amazing wrestling, and then getting to watch wrestling themed movies at night. I mean, were you a wrestling guy at all growing up?
I think about that a lot now. I grew up, in the 80s. So when WWF really exploded with all the superstars you remember from back then, I was around. I wasn't into it because at the time my whole thing was, that's fake. That's fake. It's cheesy. That's fake. I want to give me cartoons and give me monster movies. And then later on, I went back and watched the old Coliseum video tapes, sort of as a goof. And that stuff is wildly entertaining, and you can't deny the athleticism. So I don't watch it, but I appreciate it. And I really loved that first Real Rumble. I couldn't believe how much fun that was from what I saw of it. And all of us, the way that worked on the day was that everybody on the lot who had, all the customers, they were all up front watching the wrestling show. So everything in the snack bar was kind of dead during that. So a lot of the staff were able to come out and watch from a distance. And it was so funny. And they even shot, if you find the LVAC online, there is a DVD of that first Real Rumble show they did with us. And they filmed segments where they were beating each other up, going throughout the projection booth and snack bar and using various props from around the area. Like I think somebody got a record smashed over their head. Somebody got popcorn dumped on them. And then at one point, one of the wrestlers climbs up on the roof, jumps off the roof of our snack bar onto another show on the ground. So there's the professionally shot video of this out there on DVD if you want to see the Mahoning and get a sense of what Real Rumble is like. And then, then we show movies too.
Yeah, cannot be missed. Now, the movies we're playing, to be mentioned, on Friday night, we're doing The Wrestler classic, Mickey Rourke. It's a modern day classic. When did that come out? 2007, Mark?
Early 2000s. It's a really good movie. It's not a laugh riot. It's no holds barred. But
we're getting serious this year.
It's a gritty look at a wrestler sort of past his prime and what his life might be like. And it's Mickey Rourke as the titular wrestler and Marissa Tomei as the love interest. It's a really good movie.
Incredible performance, Academy Award nominated performance. We're going to follow that up with a secret feature that you will not know until you get to the theater. So I can say it will be more fun than The Wrestler. 100%.
It's a square
on
up
Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because we talked about it, and movies that we try to tie in with this weekend, they have to include a wrestler, be about wrestling. And we've been doing this for 3 years and have touched several of the wrestling classics and movies that star wrestlers. So we might even get into the whole like showing classic matches or something like that in the future, because I think that's a real fun appeal too, is just kind of getting into the fandom of classic wrestling.
Well, when you make the list of movies about wrestling that we can get on 35 millimeter, it's a pretty short list. And then you expand out into movies wrestlers are in. And then if you put the little caveat of they're good, that's a very short list too. We've worked our way through most of the Hulk Hogan 35 millimeter filmography, dipping into the Jesse Ventura and maybe some others as you continue to explain our selections here. But eventually we're going to have to get more eclectic or repeat some titles, I think.
Yeah, totally. Saturday we got, after the live wrestling, of course, and it's worth mentioning, the gates open a little bit early. Bell time is at 5:30, gates at 5. So you guys get a little extra time for wrestling, and of course showtime at sundown. And on Saturday we got Running Man on 35 millimeters, starring Jesse Ventura, and The Scorpion King with The Rock, early Rock too. And we were really on the fence about this title. We were like, do we show this one? Do we go with a more modern Rock movie? And it's like, let's just start from the beginning. Let people bask in all of the CGI glory that is Scorpion King.
This is where I just want to say, does that CGI date well?
Oh, it's going to be fun. I say most of the movies that we watch on Wrestling Weekend, I laugh along whether it's meant to or not. The Hulk Hogan movies are very special to me. The idea that we got to play Suburban Commando, the idea that we got to play Mr. Mom, the idea that we got to play Mr. Nanny, and we got to play some of these No Holds Barred is
No Holds
pretty
Barred
crazy.
is hilarious, whether it tries to be or not.
It's the best. That's my childhood wrapped in a bow.
Dookie.
That movie so Dookie. Yeah, it's a gem. And we're shifting gears a little bit as we get into Sunday. Every now and then we'll try to do these timely tributes, and this is a great opportunity to do one. On Sunday, June 5th, we got Dirty Work, a single feature. For those who don't know, Dirty Work, starring Norm Macdonald, directed by Bob Saget, and we're doing a tie-in tribute for both of them. You seen this one, Mark?
I rented this when I think it was relatively new to tape, and I honestly don't remember anything about it. I know Don Rickles is in it, and I'm a huge fan of Don Rickles, so it is a very belated Don Rickles tribute show as well.
I was addicted, and still am kind of addicted, to Saturday Night Live. It's been a connection throughout my whole entire life. A connection with a lot of my friends early on. We would do these Saturday Night Live impressions and work out these skits and blah, blah, blah. But Norm was huge for us. That was right in my time frame going to middle school at that time. And Dirty Work was on loop just as much as Wayne's World was, just as much as some of these pivotal Saturday Night Live movies were. And the reason I love this movie, it doesn't hold back. It's kind of raunchy, which is perfect for Bob Saget's humor and for Norm's sensibilities. But the cast, you have literally a slew of amazing cast members, from Artie Lang to Chevy Chase. Don Rickles crushes it in this movie, Baby Gorilla. And there's so many great connections if you're a Stern fan as well. I mean, I grew up and was into Stern all through college and high school. And Artie was a big tie-in with that. And this movie was brought up many a time on that show. So I think it'll be a really great one, from 1998. So again, a more modern day classic, but the response we got when we announced that has been huge. A lot of love.
It's so funny that we often will internally we'll be talking about contenders for movies, and somebody might say something and I'll just blurt out, it's too new. And then you realize that some of these, we have people working on staff that can drive that were not born at the time these movies were made.
And it's weird because I'll be like, hey, why don't we play this? And it'll be like, it's a little too new. It's like, it's 25 years old. It's like, oh, crap. Where did the time go? And we actually talked about that before we started recording. That's a sensibility that we're totally open to. As much as we try to keep in this very specific classic era, the idea of letting that leak out and spread open a little bit more has to happen for us to keep the audience fresh and grow the audience. So when we talk about these maybe not so Mahoning events, sometimes they're our most well-attended events because it gives people an opportunity to come out that might not, be into the grindhousey horror stuff.
It's the whole idea of expanding your audience. We might show something like, Savannah Smiles doubled with Chomps, and then people will come out who'd never been before. They fall in love with us, and then they'll come out for the slasher fests or the gangster shows or whatever. So it never can hurt to be a little eclectic, to try something different. And if it tanks hard, you're not going to see it for at least 5 years. We'll try again.
We got to test it all out. And it's worth mentioning for the Dirty Work event, we're tying in a fundraiser there. Bob Saget's sister passed away from scleroderma, suffered and then eventually passed away from scleroderma. And he was a big supporter of scleroderma throughout his whole life, scleroderma research. So we're going to do a donation. All the merch profits will be kicking over in his name. Least we can do. I mean, this is a guy who they say, is America's dad. But for me, I grew up with Full House. He was literally like my dad. And he was such a loved performer, a local guy too. When I ran the video store, many people would come in and say, I went to high school, because I want to say he went to Abington Senior High, which is literally the next town over from where I grew up. So he had a connection right in my area, and one of those guys that always had the support of the area and the love of the world, but he kind of felt like ours. It's strange because he was just about to do a show at a theater that I still go to at least a couple times a year with my family, the Keswick. And unfortunately, he won't be able to do that show, but that always was like a homecoming. He'd come back and always try to do a show locally, and of course would pack the place and people would love all over him. So come on out. That's going to be a really, really fun one. When I think about Saget, I think about Half Baked as well. He's got a great cameo in Half Baked, which was going around for a while right after he passed.
Hi, I'm Chili Dilly, the personality pickle. Packed in a jar for the freshest flavor. Served cold in a sack for you to savor. So dainty to eat, no muss, no fuss. An ideal snack for all of us. Crisp, tender, and tasty with a bit of spice. Buy one now. Taste how nice. Snack bar clerks will knock themselves silly, speeding your order for a real chili dilly.
On June 7th, Tunnel Vision Tuesday continues with Dolomite on 35 millimeter. Yeah.
Sorry,
what are your feelings on Dolomite? No, that's good. What do you think of Dolomite?
If anybody doesn't know Dolomite, wow, you really should come out as blind as possible and let that movie wash over you. So I'm actually in the middle of a book about the star of Dolomite, Rudy Ray Moore, right now. I'm actually looking at this book as I speak across the bedroom. There's a new book out called Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself. It is a brand new book, extensively researched for decades, about the African-American comedian Rudy Ray Moore.
Uptown, downtown, crowned and renowned. I put my finger in the ground and turn the whole world around. Dolomite.
So this new Rudy Ray Moore biography is written by Mark Jason Murray, and we have Mark Jason Murray recording for us a video introduction to play right before the film that night. And the book is amazing. I'm talking more about the book than the movie. The movie is this low budget. You might know about it because Eddie Murphy played Rudy Ray Moore in a made-for-Netflix movie called Dolomite Is My Name, about the making of this movie, which is a brilliant, hilarious movie in and of itself. And it was this low-budget movie about this pimp who busts out of jail to get revenge on Willie Green, played by D'Urville Martin, who directed the movie. This rival criminal or club owner or something, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous 70s fashion. It's the Waka Chicka music that you know and love. It's bad kung fu. And it's this amazing amalgam of like comedy, action, drama, really dirty comedy, and some music in it. James Ingram, James Ingram, the popular like R&B singer from like the 80s. He's in the band that you see performing in the nightclub in Dolomite. This Dolomite is amazing. Foul-mouthed as all get out. And boy, if people have their speakers turned up loud the night we show this, we're going to be hearing from those neighbors, because there's some multi-syllabic hard consonant words that are going to be drifting through the Lehighton Valley that night. But oh boy, yeah, Dolomite on 35 millimeter is going to be quite the sight to see. He made a couple other movies too that hopefully Dolomite will be such a success that we can run the sequel.
I hope
Human
so.
Tornado.
Rudy Ray Moore. Yeah,
And-
he is an experience in himself.
I saw him live once. Did I ever mention that?
What?
Yeah.
What was that? What was that about?
The Coolidge Corner Theater in Boston, which is still there, is this beautiful old Art Deco movie palace. They have midnight shows. They've been doing midnight shows forever. And they announced that they were screening The Human Tornado with Rudy Ray Moore in person. So my friends and I went, and we waited in line outside the theater at 11:20 or 11:30. And at one point, Rudy Ray Moore just walks in the theater dressed out to the nines with like this bejeweled plastic pimp cup. And he just walked up and he asked, which was the door to get in. And he says, "Oh, this must be the place." And he walked in. He was so smooth. And then before the movie, he did like his comedy routine. He did like the dirty alphabet. A is for ass. And then it got dirtier from there. and he kept playing cuts off like a new album he was releasing. He kept having the projectionist play the cuts, and he kept yelling at the projectionist for playing the wrong one. And I don't know if it was an act or not. And then they ran Human Tornado on. I think it was on DVD at the time. But yeah, I count myself as extremely lucky that I saw this guy, because this is like a legend of King of the Party Records, they called him in the day. So you really owe it to yourself to see these movies. And what better place than on a drive-in screen, where as I'm learning in this book, they were very popular in drive-ins for the most of the decade of the 70s.
Yeah, and I love when we can tap into the blaxploitation goodness. It's rare that we can kind of go down this route. So come on out, support it. Again, vote with your buck. If it's a banger, we'll put it in a weekend. We'll make that happen for a big 70s blaxploitation weekend. Wouldn't that be something, Mark?
I would.
Come out.
It's a genre I love. Yeah, have Pam Grier come out, get some Fred Williamson on that screen. That would be pretty sweet.
Did you ever wonder what it would be like to be one of the last people on Earth?
We're talking ghost town!
Who would you see?
There's nobody.
Where would you go?
The stars are up ahead!
What will you give me if I come back?
Texas?
Well, get ready to find out, because the comet is coming into your orbit. Night of the Comet, rated PG-13.
Starts Friday, November 16th at a theater near you.
So speaking of guests, really excited about this one. On June 10th and 11th, Catherine and Kelly save the world, as we invite Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney to the Mahoning family. Two badass women known for their badassness. And on Friday night, we got Chopping Mall starring Kelly, followed by The Last Starfighter starring Catherine. And on Saturday, we got Night of the Comet starring both of those ladies, and the canon masterpiece, The Apple, closing out the event, which I'm really, really excited about seeing The Apple on 35 millimeter.
I've still never seen it. Apparently it is this ridiculously over the top, excessive 80s schmaltz musical that's
an acid
like in the
trip.
future. And it's about the evils of the music industry and all that. I've always wanted to see it, so I can't wait to be able to see it.
It's unbelievable. But the reason I love this movie, like a lot of these canon movies, is the commitment. They're just going for it. It's so great. And Catherine has a great sense of humor and amazing stories about the Apple that I've heard her tell. Guaranteed that they will be giving some amazing introductions to the movies. You guys can come on out and get your autographs, get your pictures. One of the coolest things I've seen Catherine do, a fan of ours who comes to the theater on a regular basis, brings his Fiero. And when he met Kathy somewhere, I forget where it was.
I think it was the Pocono Cinema where
yes, that's right. That was the connection through Sandy and the Pocono Cinema. But she signed his car. Literally like signed it, all badass. And then he got some pictures of her like sprawled out on the car. Super cool. So she's coming to play, man. And Kelly was a total curveball for us, where Catherine was on the docket for us before the pandemic. And again, Sandy, our merch manager, had a connection with Catherine because they brought her out to a theater that she helps out, the Pocono Cinema. And we were trying to make this work. And the idea was, Catherine Mary Stewart saves the world. 4 movies, all Catherine, good to go. And then this year we started the talks again, on whether we could make this happen. And I've been seeing that they've been making appearances together and doing these kind of joint appearances. And I was like, well, the anchor of our weekend is Comet, and all the imagery, obviously, the promotion, the two girls together. So it really, really worked and gave us the opportunity to add Shopping Mall to the lineup, which you can never go wrong when you add Shopping Mall. You a fan of Shopping Mall? VHS classic.
I've been a fan of Shopping Mall since I saw it on, I think, HBO back in the 80s, or HBO or Cinemax back in the 80s. It's a Jim Wynorski directed, originally called Killbots, which gives you more of an idea of what it's about. It's the shopping mall where they have these high-tech robots that patrol the mall at night, and they go crazy and start killing these teens or 20-somethings who broke in to have, lascivious activities in the mall. And you've got Dick Miller in it. You've got this great cameo by Paul Bartel and Mary Warnov, who are sort of reprising their roles from Eating Raoul. It's just a total 80s horror exploitation, gratuitous blast.
Amazing. And we played it on VHS as part of VHS Fest, and really excited to bring and I think, Jim did a introduction for us for that show. And we're working on trying to bring Jim out for an event this year as well. So stay tuned. Any experiences with these other, you said you didn't see The Apple.
The Apple's the only one I've never seen.
Fan of Comet? Fan of Last Starfighter?
Last Starfighter is one that I didn't see it when it came out. And when it came out, it got a bit of a push. There was like a comic book adaptation, one of those, Marvel 4-issue series things and all that. And for whatever reason, I think at the time when I was a kid, my mind was like, well, this is a Star Wars ripoff. And I had this thing in my head about what I consider to be ripoffs. It really isn't, but I didn't catch Starfighter until I saw it on cable and I liked it. There's Robert Preston in it, the music man. And then I saw Night of the Comet on, again, it was HBO, where I would catch up with a lot of these things. And Comet I always thought was a lot of fun because it's one of these, it's like a light 80s comedy, but it's also like a horror sci-fi thing where Halley's Comet passes too close to the Earth and kills everybody, just about everybody, unless you were like in a lead-lined space, or unless you were in a certain kind of space, you were spared from it. And the people who were left out that weren't turned to red dust or turned into like zombies, did we play that at a zombie fest once, or did that just play by itself?
Yeah, it's funny because that was my introduction to this movie. Somehow it totally missed me through the video store days, and growing up, for some reason, I'd never seen it. And it was one of the headliners at an early zombie fest, and it blew my mind. It's just such a cool movie, amazing performances, and again, kind of an 80s staple. Last Starfighter, I was a big fan of. It had that arcade tie-in. So
yes,
remember when The Wizard came out and it was the big, like, oh, this is the Nintendo movie. That was one of those movies that they would talk about as like an arcade movie. So I remember going down that rabbit hole the same time that I watched like joysticks for the first time. And
well, it's such a fun concept, especially if you're a kid. Maybe I was like 2 years too old for when the appeal when it came out. But the idea is that this guy who's really good at this arcade game where you're, blasting space fighters in space, in that game is essentially used as a recruiting tool by another planet to try to find people who are good enough to be pilots in their armada. And they just show up and you're like, you're our ace guy. Come on, we're going to train you. You're going to fight some bad guys. It's like a kid's dream. It's like this thing you do that everybody tells you is worthless. You're wasting quarters on that machine. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go save a planet, another galaxy, mom.
Tell me it's worthless now.
And Night of the Comet is a lot like Dawn of the Dead when you think about it. It's these people, it's teens, it's young people who have like LA at their fingertips, so they can do whatever they want. They can grab all the free clothes they want. They can grab a hot car and all that. And it's great, but there are zombies. Yeah, it's perfect except for the people trying to kill us.
Yeah, it's amazingly well crafted. And again, if you guys have not witnessed it, come on out, experience the madness. But I can say it, if you're a fan, seeing it on the Mahoning screen is going to be magical. And we got a lot of fun planned for the photo ops and all that good stuff for that weekend. So come out. That's going to be a really, really exciting one. Now on Sunday the 12th, we can't talk about what this movie is going to be because it's not officially booked yet, but I can say Mark is working on trying to locate a movie car that we might be able to tie in with this event.
Hey everybody, so Mark popping in right here. We actually recorded this episode months ago. We record these things like well in advance of when they air, and at that time we didn't know if the movie was going to be confirmed that we're about to talk about in very, very general but cluey terms. The movie is confirmed now. It's been announced, and it's Batman the movie from 1966, aka Batman 66. It's the entire cast of the original Batman TV show from the 60s: Adam West, Burt Ward, Cesar Romero, all the villains, your favorite heroes, and on 35 millimeter on the big screen. And we did indeed secure a Batman 66 Batmobile, a Batcycle, a Bat Signal, Batman, Robin, and Batgirl cosplayers looking like the 60s, and a company that prints. Pardon me, while I'm recording this, there is literally a tree being dismantled outside my window. Sensitive microphone. And we have Batman cosplayers and a company that will print up 8x10 glossies on the spot for a fee. So it's going to be a really, really fun night. It's going to be a Bat fan convention, more or less. And now back to us 2 or 3 months ago, talking about this film that we really hoped we'd be able to show.
This is another one that's really important to my childhood. And Mark, I know you're right there as well.
This is a film adaptation. They're totally going to guess this when you say car and what I'm about to say. A film adaptation of a TV program that I was a big fan of, seeing it in reruns as a kid. And it for a lot of people, it shaped our view of a certain character that has been seen in many other forms since then. And the vehicle involved is very, very iconic. And this movie was made by the same people who made the show. So it feels just like the show does, only like a long episode of it. And to see that on the big screen is going to be a blast if we can make this work. And if we can get the value added things brought into that, it's going to be even more of a fan event, really.
Yeah, this has been on the booking list since year one. This is one that I know is going to be like a dream seeing up on the big screen. It's amazingly colorful. It takes me right back. Every time that I see it, it's perfect. If this doesn't work out, I apologize to all you guys.
Yeah, we're
going to keep pushing.
We each have one of those this week. Well, I was going to say, if I thought you were saying if nobody shows up, I apologize.
Oh, they're coming if we make this happen.
No, if it happens, this is going to be a destination event. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that we have that indoor theaters don't have, is the ability to do certain value added things. Like any indoor theater can have a guest come out or have somebody, do an introduction. But the idea of like bringing a vehicle or bringing a wrestling ring or bringing these like big things that take up space that you do outdoors, a lot of theaters don't have the real estate, literally done the real estate to do that. So this is where we try to really utilize the land that we have and the environment that we have to make things, more than just a movie screening, or to give you an experience between when you roll into the gate and when the film starts that is worth your money before the movie even hits the screen.
Oh yeah, in pure Mahoning fashion. That's what we always like to do, whether it's photo ops, guests, vendors, the experience, all that stuff. On the 14th, really excited about this one because it's a follow-up to our screening on May 17th. We are screening Aliens on 35 millimeter. For many, their favorite of the series. Where do you fall with this puppy?
I think it's hard to say. I came to the Alien movies late anyway. I think I saw Aliens first.
So did I.
Then saw Alien, then saw most of the sequels. It's hard to say. Cameron had a way of really upping the ante with the sequels that he directed, especially Piranha 2. And Aliens is like, it's an action movie. It's an insane pulse-pounding thriller. It's a horror movie. It's sci-fi. It doesn't waste any time. Like, it really is an efficient adrenaline machine. So if you were to put Alien and Aliens in front of me, I might pick Aliens over Alien, but it would probably be by a pretty slim margin. Alien really has the suspense and the dread going on, and Aliens is just a very 80s lock and load and let's shoot some big scary aliens movie.
Oh yeah, and it is. It's one, again, to experience on the big screen and outdoors. Any movie that's set in space, I think you've talked about it, Mark. You get this this insanely immersive experience on a starry night where the screen and the sky, there's really no difference.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. It's a drive-in thing, and it's especially a drive-in thing if there's nothing behind the screen. But when I think I've said before, when I saw the original Alien at a drive-in a couple of years ago as a re-release, that's exactly what happened. There were no real trees around the top and top edges of the screen, and any space scenes on a starry night, it was just like the screen didn't end. The screen went up as far as I could see. So Aliens, it's going to be exciting. This is one that I believe we ran several years ago, and then 20th Century Fox was swallowed up by Disney, and then nobody could play
before the merger. We played it as part of the Alien and Predator weekend, where we tapped into the Aliens franchise and some of the Predator franchise.
And then for years, nobody could show anything 20th Century Fox. So suddenly you didn't see Die Hard playing anywhere, and you didn't see the Alien movies. But we have, a foot in the door. We're on good terms with Disney, which means we're on good terms with Fox. And now you're going to start seeing, especially the Tunnel Vision Tuesdays. Harry is seizing upon that Fox relationship.
Oh, yeah. He's trying to go after as many of those big bad boys as possible. And again, really exciting. The Tuesdays have become like a community in itself. And again, we were talking about it before we recorded. This is the ultimate opportunity for this to grow. The idea that he is pulling out these humongous blockbusters on a Tuesday, which we know can upset some people if they can't make it. But for those who can make it, it's an amazing opportunity to come out and get the Mahoning experience, even during the work week.
It's an excellent reason to be extremely tired at work or school the next day.
Oh, yeah.
You got a story. Why do you look like somebody punched you in both eyes? Well, first of all, they did. But other than that, I got to see the Great Smoky Roadblock on 35 millimeter to drive-in.
I had a once-in-a-lifetime experience last night.
They'll be like, first of all, you're crazy. Second of all, you're fired. Third of all, where's this drive-in?
This drive-in theater is radioactive. Now you can hear tonight's show on your AM car radio. Turn your ignition key to the accessory position. This will not drain your car battery. Now turn on your radio and zero in on the following AM station.
Well, we're excited to announce Van Party is coming back on June 17th and 18th, and even more excited to say that we are partnering with Exhumed Films for Night 2 for our first ever From Dusk Till Dawn. That's right. We are getting ambitious here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. So strap in. Friday night, we kick things off with Blade on 35 millimeter and Blackula on 35 millimeter. And Mark, what was your perfect description in the write-up?
Yeah, I referred to Blackula and Blade in the write-up for Van Party 2020 as African-American oral acupuncturists.
Which is perfect.
I'm a fan of alliteration. Blade I saw in the theater. I saw a few times in the theater when it came out. Blade is cool. Or was
Blade is super cool. And one of those things, again, kind of pushing the envelope of the classic era that we normally lean into. But Blade is a super cool movie, and one of those movies that if you were a fan when that movie came out, you kind of go back and revisit. And people talk about Blade still to this day, and really excited to bring it on 35 millimeter. Another great tie-in with bringing Blade at least this year is that, of course, Marvel is rebooting the Blade franchise and has just reintroduced Blade into the Marvel universe with Eternals.
Now, yeah, there's like see, I didn't get it. Like, yeah, you need the cliff notes for a lot of the Marvel movies where they put the PSs in the little.
Oh yeah,
because there's just you can say Blade is in Eternals. I had to read about it afterwards. You hear a voice in voiceover, like in somebody's head at the end of Eternals, that somebody later said, "Oh yeah, that's Blade." I'm like, okay, I guess it is. But they are planning on bringing Blade back. So this will be the first and perhaps only time we have a Marvel Comics character present on screen during Van Party.
Yes, we are reigniting the love for Blade.
And then Blackula, people joke about Blackula and they just sort of toss it aside as this cheesy 70s movie. Blackula is actually pretty good. It's pretty, if you can overlook the fashion and the music, and it's intentionally funny at times too, but it's pretty creepy and it's pretty well done. William Marshall is excellent as the what they call him, the Black Avenger in the old trailer. But I like Blackula quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you love Blackula, you'll actually be able to get a double bite at the apple because Harry's opening up his Saturday night with Scream, Blackula, Scream. Fan of the sequel?
Which brings Pam Grier to our screen.
Finally!
Yes, the sequel's fun. You see, I think Blackula is better, but the sequel's fun. Gets into a little bit of voodoo and such. And it made me wish that there had been more Blackula movies because, again, William Marshall, as some people only know him as the king of cartoons from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
The king of cartoons!
I won a videotape at one of the Coolidge Corner Theater 12-hour horror marathons once because that was the trivia question. You know, what Pee-wee's Playhouse character did William Marshall play? He's really good in that role. So you get the two Blackula, one per night, which is great. And Harry's Saturday night is a 70s vampire dusk till dawn show, which is, you know, who will survive at the end of that night? Will you or the vampires still be on 2 feet by the time?
It will be a challenge of everybody's stamina for sure. We follow up that opener with Nosferatu the Vampire from 1979. Now, it is the 100th anniversary of Nosferatu. We did try to get a print of Nosferatu, but this is an amazing film. Where do you fall with Nosferatu, Mark?
I've only seen this once, I believe. And there are two versions of this. It was Werner Herzog made the film. He shot it in English and he shot it in German. And apparently there are enough differences between the two that if you're a big fan, it's worth your time to see both.
Yes.
We have an original release US English language print of this. It stars Klaus Kinski as Baron Orlok, I think he's called in the movie. And he's the Nosferatu, looking very much like Nosferatu Max Schreck in the original F.W. Murnau silent film. And I mean, Klaus Kinski's a creep anyway. I mean, or a creepy guy. He's dead now, so he's not going to sue. He's a creepy guy anyway. And it's just like perfect casting. And you have Isabella Gianni as the woman he's lusting after, her blood and more. And I honestly don't remember it very well, but I remember it being very atmospheric and it's Herzog. How many bad Herzog movies are there?
And I've heard about this print making the rounds. Really excited to view this on the Mahoning screen. And to close out the night, Crypt of the Living Dead, Son of Dracula, aka Young Dracula, and The Vampire Happening. 70s goodness right there, guys.
So if I may,
yeah.
Crypt of the Living Dead, aka Young Hannah, Queen of the Vampires. Fun movie with Andrew Prine about some people who go to like this island in Turkey or something, and he inadvertently opens a crypt and releases a vampire queen. Son of Dracula is very interesting, and it's good that people know what it is before they start watching it. It is Apple Films, it's like Apple Records, the Beatles company. Apple Films released this back in, I think, 73, I want to say. It stars Harry Nilsson, the singer, and it is a musical horror comedy.
Who doesn't love that?
No, if you like Harry Nilsson music, it's great because it's a lot of songs of his. The way I describe it to people is that it's basically a lot of Harry Nilsson musical performances with a thin storyline connecting them about like him being Dracula and dealing with Frankenstein and King of the Underworld and all this other stuff. It's got Ringo Starr in it as like a wizard, I believe. And the group he has backing him, Nilsson has backing him, is like John Bonham, Keith Moon, Klaus Forman. It's like rock icons of the 70s.
Right.
So it's really like kind of a light musical thing. People going in expecting a horror movie are going to be puzzled and or disappointed. And then what was the last title again? Vampire Happening is a movie we ran on my old horror host show years ago. It's fun. A young actress goes to a castle that was once owned by a descendant of hers who she looks a lot like. And she finds out that descendant was a vampire, is not quite dead yet, and feasts on the local, like, there's a local like nunnery or religious school next door in the townspeople, while this actress is oblivious to all this. And it culminates in the titular Vampire Happening, which is like this groovy European 70s party with a vampire band playing rock songs. And it's pretty ridiculous.
Certainly worth staying up. Yeah, until 5:30 in the morning.
It will match your level of deliriousness if you've made it that far.
It's perfectly paced. Like you said, we tried to mix it up a little bit, and we love it. One of our favorite events that Harry and Exhumed does is the 24-hour-thon, which obviously we can't do at the Mahoning, but we've always toyed with the idea of trying to do something like it. The closest we can get is doing these Dusk Till Dawn marathons, literally rocking from sundown to sun up. And this is going to be really fun. If people get into it, it could be something that we try to do on an annual basis. So we'll have to come up with literally like a badge if you survive.
A lot of places used to do free coffee and donuts for everybody who makes it through to the end, basically, so that you get a little breakfast. and maybe you will be awake enough to drive home afterwards.
Totally. Makes sense maybe to do a little breakfast on the griddle or something for that morning.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy to announce that we've installed Burns-O-Matic in-car heaters for your comfort and pleasure. When you receive your heater, you'll find it very easy to place in your car. Just roll down your front window and rest the heater's bracket on the window with the cylinder on the outside of the car. Roll up your window securely as far as it will go to hold the heater firmly in position. For maximum results, tilt the face of the heater towards the windshield and sit back and enjoy the show in healthful comfort. With these modern, safe, efficient in-car heaters, this drive-in theater will now remain open all year round. If you have any further questions about your Burns-O-Matic in-car heater, please contact one of our theater attendants. And remember, this drive-in theater will now remain open all year round, regardless of the weather.
So Sunday Essentials returns in June on the 19th, Sunday the 19th, with Night of the Hunter. Guys, we're so excited about this booking. And of course, in pure Sunday Essentials fashion, we've leveled it up with an amazing intro. Mark, why don't you tell them who we got?
So we have the author of a book about the Night of the Hunter entitled Heaven and Hell to Play With, the Filming of the Night of the Hunter. The author is Preston Neal Jones, and I figured why not get literally the guy who wrote the book on the movie to do an introduction. So I contacted Preston, and he's very excited about this. He's frankly impressed that we're running this kind of film, and he'll be sending us a pre-recorded video intro that we'll play right before the movie to give you a little context in where this film came from and a little about the making of the movie. The actor Charles Laughton, who a lot of people know from Mutiny on the Bounty, the Clark Gable version of Mutiny on the Bounty. This is the only film he ever directed, and wow, have a guy direct one movie and it's as amazing as this one is.
A stone cold classic. It's unbelievable.
It's so good.
Every time I see this movie, and remember, I'm a kid who grew up on a stage. The production value of this movie is beautiful, and every single shot it looks like a painting. It's perfectly framed, perfectly orchestrated. The performances are unbelievable, and I'll say it to the day I die. I think some of the greatest childhood performances come from the two kids in this movie. When I watched it, I was young enough to be able to put myself in the little boy's shoes, and kind of grew up over the years loving this movie and putting myself in different characters' scenarios. And
hopefully not the Robert Mitchum character. I think I'm on a widow who might have some money stashed somewhere. Maybe do some nefarious deeds and maybe threaten to kill the kids unless they tell me where.
That's right. No, but it's incredibly effective both for young and old. And for a movie from 1955, it feels so incredibly timeless. And when it came to Sunday Essentials, this has always been on the list, one that we were always trying to find a way to play. I would say for me, easily a top 10 favorite movie.
It's so good. This is one my mother told me about when I was a kid before I ever saw it. And she remembered thinking what a terrifying movie it was because Robert Mitchum was this handsome male lead who always played the hero. And in this movie, he is not the hero. He is the bad guy. And the idea that this adult male was trying to hunt down and do harm to kids, when she saw this as a little girl, it was just really disturbing to her. And the William Castle movie, I Saw What You Did, I saw at a very young age. And that movie was about an adult trying to harm kids. And that was a concept that had never entered into my mind at that point. And it was terrifying. So I can see how this movie would work on you if you saw it young. I saw it when I was in my probably teens, and I saw it again really very recently. It is so well made. It's so well shot and lit. It's black and white. It's so atmospheric, and it's a creepy thriller.
Yeah. Flawless. I would say absolutely flawless. And it's funny that you brought it up because I remember my mother watching this before I watched it or as I was casually starting to watch it. And the music would freak me out. The lullaby that he sings, the, sleep, little boy, sleep, or whatever it is. And then the girl sings it is so haunting. And it's amazing. So I really, really cannot urge you guys enough. If you're coming out to Van Party, it's certainly a reason to sleep the day off and hang out with us for a little classic. at night. It's an easy pill to swallow. It's not insanely long, and it's going to be a great night out at the movies.
That is the benefit of the Sunday shows too, being single features, is that if you have to travel home or if you're just coming out for one show, unless we're doing a long movie, you know, when the sun's setting really late, these are not terribly late nights. You're done, you know, before you normally would go to bed on a Sunday night anyway.
Yeah, and it really works out. If we've been trying to tack these onto the weekend, so it's like, hey, if we have a big banger of a weekend like Kathy and Kelly or Van Party or whatever the case is, let's give people a reason to literally hang out during the day, go hiking or check out the sights, and then head on back and check out a movie before they head home. So I hope a lot of people take advantage of it. Really, really fun one on the 21st for Tunnel Vision Tuesday. Class of 1984, which I think ironically was released in 1982, right?
It was. I think the idea was that it's not kind of a futuristic thing. I think, 1984 was this big doom number for the longest time in the 80s. It's like, oh my God, based on the George Orwell book. And it's just like everything would be the year 2000 when it was supposed to be futuristic up to a point until you hit 2000. Then you're like, oh, things aren't that different. So yeah, Class of 84 is not, there was a movie called Class of 1999 that was kind of a sequel / remake to this movie that was trying to be like a futuristic, like robot teachers versus unruly students. But this is just set in a really, really rough high school where these punk kids are like ruling the school and terrorizing the teachers, and the teachers decide they've had enough and they decide to strike back.
Right. So come on out, enjoy that one. Again, super rare screening. Exhumed has taken a little turn for their monthly event in June. Traditionally, they do mostly horror stuff, but because we had Van Party, brought them in for Van Party the week before, Harry is teaming up with us for Action Adventure Weekend. And strap in, because, oh my goodness, the Dusk Till Dawn situation is pretty much continuing. As we move into triple features on Friday and Saturday and a Stone Cold classic on Sunday. So on Friday night, if you are a Charlie Bronson fan like I am, you are about to be in heaven, because we are screening The Mechanic, Mr. Majestic, and Death Wish 3 on 35 millimeter. Dreams come true, guys.
Death Wish 3 is ridiculous. I never saw it until this year. Some people really like it. It was not a movie for me, but it is ridiculous. And the first two movies are great. Oh yeah,
it's unbelievable. So yeah, that is him at like ultimate badassness and unleashed in a movie. So,
and I think if anybody asks, why aren't you showing the first two Death Wishes, or why aren't you showing 10 to Midnight or some of the other ones, Harry really doesn't like to repeat himself for the most part with these weekends. So those were shown within the last couple of years at the drive-in. So as with anything, if this show does well, you can bet your sweet Bronson that there will be more Charlie B on their big screen.
And I went through a hard Bronson phase, like literally took in every piece of Bronson I could possibly get. And even when I got into collecting, if Charlie Bronson's name was on a movie, I was picking it up and I was purchasing it. So the collection runs deep, and certainly a ton of love for The Mechanic. Where do you fall on The Mechanic?
The Mechanic is good. I've only seen it once. My father was a big Bronson, Chuck Norris, Clint Eastwood fan. So those movies would play on cable and they would play on the local TV stations that we got. So I saw most of that stuff back then. And I remember being shocked at the ending of The Mechanic, which I think was remade a couple years ago.
It was, yeah.
And it's really good. My memory of it is that Bronson is a hitman and Jan Michael Vincent is like it's almost like Hooper. Jan Michael Vincent is a young up and coming hitman that he's sort of showing the ropes to. And it's just a good steely eyed action movie.
I love it. Again, it's one of those titles that jumped off the VHS shelf during my VHS days. And I'll never forget, it had an amazing tagline that was, let me remember. It was like, he's got 100 ways to kill and they all work. That was it. He's got 100 ways to kill and they all work. The Mechanic. And yeah, like when you think about Charlie Bronson, he is the epitome of badass in the 70s. Like, he is what you could liken to, every action star that came after him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much he has endured despite not having made a movie. well, it's kind of hard for him to make a movie now, but he hasn't had anything in release for so long. But there are people far younger than us who are like, they dig the Bronson because he just had that. He had that way about him. I mean, from Once Upon a Time in the West right up to, Messenger of Death much later, well into his, senior citizen years, he was still packing a pistola and cleaning up the streets.
Yeah. And Mr. Majestic, when I first saw it, it was one again that instantly became a classic for me. Don't mess with the melon farmer, right, Mark?
That's what it is. I always think it's so funny that Majestic is one of the few 70s action films about melon farmers that really caught hold of the public consciousness. He plays a melon farmer. He's this guy who's just trying to farm his melons and not have anybody bother him. And some tell me if I'm wrong, because it's been a little while since I've seen it. Isn't it like a rival, like bigger corporate melon farmer?
Yeah, it's like an
operation.
It's like an organized crime, and like there's a hitman who wants to kill him, and he pretty much goes Bronson on their asses. Goes from melon farmer to the most badass you could imagine. And that was kind of his bag back in the day, like the revenge movies, the good guy pushed to the limits. And the idea that you mess with a man's melons sends him over the top.
Can we get LVAC to do a one-off t-shirt for that event like they did for Cobra? If you weren't there, LVAC, who we've talked about, they do our shirts. They did a t-shirt that said Marion Cobretti on the back, and on the front was a drawing of like two hands with hedge clippers clipping a piece of pizza, which is a reference to a moment in Cobra. And imagine some kind of melon. I mean, it probably, I don't know, it could go the wrong way, but my melons are majestic. That would be like a really kind of cool.
Chris, who runs LVAC, just started a new t-shirt company called Dry Rot. And one of his big releases is that t-shirt.
Oh, really?
Which we actually own. Yeah, he sold it as an exclusive at the show, literally like from his trunk. And of course, it was a huge hit. As soon as people saw it, they're like, yeah, I need that. Saturday night, strap in. We are having a Bond sale. That's right. James Bond is finally coming to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, and we're doing it in a big bad way. From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Thunderball, back to back to back on 35 millimeter. Let it wash over you. Mark, this is a dream come true, right?
I am a huge Bond fan, have been since I was a kid. And I've wanted us to do a Bond weekend forever. And for the longest time, it was really expensive to get the prints. Or
we talked about it, and it was like, it's impossible.
Which ones do you show? That's
another call, yeah.
Some of our regulars have had endless discussions about, if you had a Bond weekend, what would you do? Would you show them in order? Would it be one from each guy? Would it be themed? Our friend Brendan came up with a spreadsheet that broke it down in amazing and wonderful and crazy ways as to all the different ways we could present Bond films. And Harry just said, how about these three? How about the three best Connerys? Okay. None of them are short. So as you joked earlier, this might wind up being a Dusk Till Dawn show.
And, again, for a Bond fan, it is unbelievable that we play one of these movies, let alone all three on one night. So come on out. It's an incredible bang for your buck. You really can't argue.
My understanding is that these are IB Technicolor prints, which means the color should look gorgeous and like the day they were released.
You are absolutely correct, sir. And whenever we have a chance to play the IB Tech prints, it's glorious on the Mahoning screen. And the idea that I get to live these movies theatrically, like that's the big thing, is I've never seen a old era, before my era, James Bond movie on the big screen. So
they hardly ever get run, and it might have been.
They don't.
I was able to see the Brattle Theater in Boston right when they were coming out on DVD. In the early days of DVD, very often new prints would be, because film was still common then, new prints would often be struck when DVDs came out, and the Brattle ran like all the Connerys in a row as double features, in which I was totally in my element being able to see all those, including a print of Goldfinger that at the end of the print, it said James Bond will return in on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which blew my mind because I didn't know if that was at that time intended to be the next movie, or if it was like a re-release copy that was re-released, because they used to re-release these movies as double features well into the 70s and early 80s, but I was too young to experience that. So yeah, I'm thrilled to see these movies on film bigger than I've ever seen them before.
Yeah. And when you talk about once in a lifetime experiences, that certainly is one. But so is Sunday. It's funny because, again, the Sundays are becoming these single feature, essential, unbelievable classics. And the idea that we get a movie with Telly Savalas, with Ernest Borgnine, with Jim Brown, John Cassavetes, Charlie Bronson, Lee Marvin is a dream. We are playing Dirty Dozen on 35 millimeter.
Oh, I thought it was The Sound of Music.
Borgnine crushes in Sound of Music, bro.
The music of guns and explosions. Dirty Dozen, yeah, what a He-Man action movie. That is a wonderful way to cap off this weekend.
Holy hell. Yeah, so grab your fathers, grab your uncles, grab everybody that you possibly can and make your way over to the Mahoning. Definitely worth the overnight pass for these ones, without a doubt. And it's worth mentioning for those of you guys that might be new to the Mahoning this year, a lot of people take advantage of these overnight passes. They will sleep off the night or get a couple hours of sleep, and then they'll head out to lunch at the local restaurants. They'll go see the town. They'll hit a convention during the day, and then they'll make their way back. So it's a really nice flow for people who are kind of into the scene and getting out. So make it essential for yourself this summer and get out to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater and experience the madness that we have planned. It's kind of unbelievable that we have not hit July yet, and we have this many titles and this many bangers coming at you guys. Definitely worth mentioning, we close out the month of June on Tuesday the 28th with an insanely rare screening of Hellraiser on 35 millimeter. And we get it every single year. We look forward to it every single year. The comment that says, Tuesdays, I can't make it on Tuesdays. All the good stuff's playing on Tuesdays. Whenever a banger plays on Tuesdays, we know it's going to upset certain people. But this is a movie that we've been waiting to play for so long. And same situation, Mark. I don't know if it was, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it was a price issue. I think for a while it was simply unavailable or the rights were tied up.
I had always heard the rights were hard to get or they were very, very expensive to run, so nobody showed it. And it's a 80s classic. It's Clive Barker written and directed, the iconic Pinhead character. And it's a really disturbing and gruesome film. Features Andy Robinson, the Scorpio killer from Dirty Harry, in a bit more genteel a role, but a far less genteel ending for the character. And it's exciting to have this. This is one of the horror icons of that era on our big screen. Did we play Hellraiser 2 previously? I know I saw Hellraiser 2 somewhere.
We've never touched on the Hellraiser movies. And when you talk about the horror icons, we've touched on them all. We literally have a Freddy Fest. We literally have a Camp Blood. We literally have a Halloween Weekend. And the idea that we get to bring Pinhead into the mix, Doug Bradley, absolutely iconic in that role. When you think of the Mount Rushmore of horror icons, I mean, Pinhead's got to be on there. It'd be really hard to make that in stone, but...
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
So yeah, lots to look forward to in June, guys. That's 1 month of madness at the Mahoning. So again, if you guys want to get down, mahoningdit.com for all the dates, deets, and ticks. And of course, for those of you guys that are wondering, the overnight passes are available. We don't expect a decision from the township quickly, but we are certainly confident that they want to work with us and keep this successful business in town. So they're on sale now. Head on over, take advantage. Again, it extends your stay so you guys can sleep off your long night, whether that's in your car, or you want to pitch 10 or whatever the case is. It's all about keeping you safe. Well, always a pleasure hanging with you, Mark. Always a pleasure hanging with the fans. And again, we can't wait to see you guys out at the end of April at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater as we rev back up for the 2022 season. Be safe, be happy, and until next time, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.